Hey, friends, welcome to another Dr. Sev Talks Money YouTube and podcast. I know it is Super Bowl Sunday, and a lot of people are maybe watching the Super Bowl, but I am doing a Super Bowl on deck, okay? Because those Super Bowl folks got their money. All right. So, I want to start off by sharing with you what I want to talk about today. I want to share some things to consider if your money is tight and you need to prioritize your debt. Then I also want to talk about some of the things that you should consider because you do have rights when it comes to the debt dispute process. But before I do all of that, I want to share this disclaimer. And it is content on this channel is general information and is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Any information contained in this video should not be considered or relied upon as financial or legal advice, and we disclaim any liability in connection with the use of this information. Everyone's financial situation is different, and you should consult a financial professional for advice specific to your situation. What am I saying? I am saying that I'm sharing information that you can possibly use, but I do not know nor am I privy to any of your personal finance information. I am not privy to your debt load. I'm not privy to any of that. So the information that we share here, you can use in a general way. However, if you want me to give you advice on your information that's detailed, then you'd have to become my client so I can give you that information. Okay, so let me check the chat. Hey, Beverly, thank you for joining. And everyone else, good afternoon. I really appreciate you being here, and please say hello in the comments. So let's start off. I want to start off by sharing a statistic on debt. And the reason I'm sharing that is because 16% of suicides is related to debt. People who are in debt and feel hopeless and um, decide to commit suicide because they feel hopeless. So I'm sharing this because I want you to know you're not alone. I'm not glorifying debt, but I want you to know you're not alone. So credit card debt, an average is $5,000 per person in the US. Auto loan, 20,000, student loan, 39,000, mortgage to 20,000, and the total average debt in the US is 96,000 per person. And the total overall in each of these categories are in the trillions. Trillion. Dollars with a T, trillion. So I'm just saying this for you to know that you don't need to feel hopeless when it comes to debt. One of the first things I want you to do is don't ignore your debt. I have had clients say to me, I don't want to know. But let's picture this scenario. If you have debt and let's say you owe mortgage, you owe your car note, um, we'll just leave those two. We just say car note and a mortgage, and you say you don't want to know. You don't want to know how much you owe. And something were to happen, you lose your job, God forbid, or anything like that. But because you don't want to know how much you owe, you don't want to know who you owe, you don't want to know the interest rates, you don't want to know any of that. How do you manage your debt? How do you decide who to talk to see if you can restructure your debt? So I understand that sometimes we get depressed when it comes to our debt, and we really don't want to know because we're so depressed. There's so many things that are going on that we don't want to know. But that's where you hire a professional to help you to see through the haze of all that's going on in your life. Because I get it that we sometimes are overwhelmed by our debt. But so first of all, don't ignore your debt. Contact your creditors. Use the fact that you've been a loyal customer all this time and negotiate. You can negotiate new payment structures. You can negotiate new rates. You can negotiate new, adding the debt maybe on the back of your loan. There are different things because guess what? The mortgage company is not in the business of buying homes and selling homes. So they don't want your house. So they want to work with you to find a way so you can pay your debt. The auto loan company, auto folks, they're not in the business of buying cars, for buying back your car They want the money. So they will work with you. There are very few creditors who will not work with you when it comes to your debt. So you can restructure it, different ways. And I'm going to be linking two videos, one on each side here. One is a very short video on the IRS collection process because they're now using external collectors. And the other one has more details on how you can manage your debt. In this session, I want to just basically talk about, if you're in a bind, how can you prioritize your debt and what are some of the things that you can do? If you think your debt is due to mismanagement, maybe you're younger, if you're like me, and I probably shared my story many times here, where you didn't understand credit cards, you didn't understand all of that, so you charged up the cards and got the store cards when they promised you 10% if you signed up and all of that. If that's due to mismanagement, then we can teach you. You can learn how to manage your money better so that you can learn how to pay your debt. I can promise you this, that no matter how much you think you don't have in your budget, professionals like myself can help you find money. I call it found money. We can find money in your budget because we are trained to look at your finances on a without emotion. Meanwhile, you're looking at your money on an emotional level. So a professional can help you look at your money without the emotions and help you restructure your debt, help you figure out how to restructure your debt. They will have access to organizations that can help you, maybe give you some kind of grant or some kind of some kind of help with your debt. So consider hiring someone to help you with your debt. If it is a catastrophic event such as you lost your job, then go back to where I said before about talking to someone, expressing how loyal you've been as a customer, and how loyal you've been as a customer. Thank you so much, Tony. How loyal you've been as a customer, and how you are wanting to help. Go to them with solutions. When you go to the debt collectors, you do not, or to your creditors, don't go to them and say, I need help with my debt. Go to them with some possible solutions. Hey, I want to pay this. Just lost my job. I have some savings. I'd love for you to help me by restructuring the debt. Can I put maybe these payments on the back of the loan? Can I maybe, um, you know, get a restructure of my interest rates? Or, there are options. They will know what options there are, but you do not want to ignore your debt. If you ignore your debt and it ends up being in court, your wages could possibly be garnished. There are only 4 states that don't garnish your wages for consumer debt. And those 4 states are North Carolina, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Texas. They don't garnish your wages for consumer debt. But all other states will garnish your wages for consumer debt if you don't show up to court. Because think about this. You have debt and you maybe can only pay $10 per week, but you don't show up at the court system, at the courts. The creditor says, I want to collect $1,000 per month. And that's not something that's in your budget. You can't manage that. But because you didn't show up to court, the judge is more than likely going to say, yes, that is granted. And now you have a court decree that you have to abide by. And that's going to be permanently in your record. So you want to show up to court and dispute it. Well, not dispute it, but say, hey, I can't afford 1,000. I can only afford $10. And the judge is more than likely will more than likely rule in your favor. So let's talk a little bit about prioritizing debt with when you have limited resources. You want to make sure you pay your housing, your utilities, transportation, and any court order debt, right? Because those are things that can cause havoc for your family. Housing, because you need somewhere to live. So any insurance related to your housing, you want to pay that. Auto, you need that to go to work. Any insurance related to your auto, you want to make sure that's paid. And anything utilities, you want to make sure that's paid, because can you live without water? Can you live without light? If you're in a climate where it gets very cold or very hot, can you live without an AC? So these are things that you want to make priority when it comes to your debt, paying off your debt. Creditors will make you feel like you have to make their debt priority. They will create a sense of urgency around their debt. The thing is, if it's credit cards, what are they going to do? Come take the dress that you bought? Are they going to come take that meal you went out to eat? They can't take that stuff. So that becomes less. You prioritize that less. You put that on the back burner when it comes to paying debt. So if you have limited resources, then you want to make sure housing, utilities, transportation, and any court order debt make that priority, because you don't want to have what they call it, breach of court. You don't want to have, that's not breach of court, I can't think of the terminology. You don't want to have that happen, because um you don't want to have the courts actually be because you can end up you could end up being thrown in jail, right? If you ignore the court order. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your rights um as a debtor. You do have rights as a debtor. If a debt collector contacts you, don't ignore them. We talked about that before, because you could end up with your wages being garnished. You want to check the statute of limitation in your state for your debt. And the reason you want to do that is because the statute of limitation governs whether they can take you to court. It's not that you don't owe the debt, but they cannot take you to court for that debt. So let's say, for example, you owe $1,000 and they want to collect, the debt collector wants to collect that money. And in your state, the statute is 3 years. You still owe that $1,000. If the statute is 3 years and the 3 years have passed since you owe that debt, or since you've had any activity on that debt, they can no longer take you to court. You still owe the money, but they can't take you to court. So those are some of the things that you want to consider. Consider looking at the statute of limitation in your state as to whether or not they can take you to court. Hey, Anne Margaret, thank you so much for joining. Right. So another thing is, if a debt collector contacts you, get their information, because not all debt collectors are authorized to collect debt in all states. So you want to make sure that they are genuinely legit and they can collect debt in your state. Get the name of their company, get their name, their info, their name and address. You can also ask the debt collector not to contact you at a certain number or by phone or whatever. You can say, please do not contact me at this number. You have the right to do that. Even though you owe the money, you have the right to tell them that. So you want to get all of their information. Then if you think the debt belongs to you, then you also have some options. You can try to settle with the debt collector. Well, first of all, you want to verify the debt. You want to verify that the amounts they say you owe is what you really owe. You want to verify that the account number they have, the name they have on the account, all of that information is correct. And that's why it's so important to keep track of all of your information, your date, any date, debt, or anything like that. Keep track of any payments you've made, because these companies can make mistakes, whether it's intentional mistakes or unintentional. They can make mistakes. So you want to keep track of that stuff. So you want to verify the information. You want to verify the debt that is yours. And once you verify it, you can try to settle the debt. You can try to negotiate a payment plan, or you can pay the debt in full and just say, forget y'all, I'll pay it in full and let's move on. Right. So, but if the debt is not yours, then you want to send them a letter. And in that letter, you want to say, this debt does not belong to me. And you want to show why the debt doesn't belong to you. If you wait too long, you can lose your ability to dispute the debt, unfortunately. So you have to be very careful, because they can take a debt to court that's not yours. And then you end up, because you didn't show up in court, you end up owing something that's really not yours. So the main thing I want to stress today is, don't ignore your debt, because you have options, and don't ever feel hopeless when it comes to your debt, because you have options and you have help in the person of a financial educator like myself, a financial counselor, a financial coach, a financial planner. You have help in people of those professions. So what's coming up next? Next week, I'm going to be having someone on the show who's going to be talking about real estate. building financial freedom with real estate. She walked away from her job at 32 due to real estate, being able to manage her real estate, make enough money where she can walk away from her job at 32. And I'm going to have her on, and she's going to share some tips with us, some things that she did in order to now walk in financial freedom due to real estate. So thanks everyone for joining, and I hope you'll join me next Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time when my guest will be talking about real estate. Thank you and have a wonderful afternoon.